What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Fantasy Football Over Analysis. Today we're talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, their fantasy relevant players, and whether or not we are targeting or fading them in our drafts this summer. At quarterback, Baker Mayfield regressed a bit last season. In 2024, he finished as the QB4 overall. Last year went down to the QB12, and Mayfield just battled through all kinds of adversity. He had a ton of different injuries. He had sprains in his MCL and PCL, a bone bruise in his knee. He also had a biceps contusion and an AC joint sprain. So Baker overcomes this laundry list of injuries and is still more than serviceable as a fantasy quarterback. This year you can now get him at a discounted price. He's coming in about the QB 19. Mayfield also gets a new offensive coordinator this year with Zach Robinson coming over from the Atlanta Falcons. So Mayfield is a guy that isn't going to cost you anything in drafts. You can get him as a lower end quarterback too, and the upside's still there for him to vastly outperform that draft position. Even in a down year, Mayfield was still able to finish as QB12 last year. So with the offensive environment he's in this year, he's still primed to make another run at a QB1 finish. And I'm very much a wait on quarterback guy, and Mayfield goes later than the quarterbacks that I typically go after. The Brock Purdy's, the Jared Goffs. Mayfield goes 3 positions later than Jared Goff in drafts. So that's such a phenomenal value. So if you really want to wait even later on quarterback, then Mayfield is a great option at the bottom of the QB2 ranks. At running back, Bucky Irving was one of the biggest busts in fantasy football last year. Following up a rookie campaign in which he finished as the RB13, Bucky played in just 10 games last year and finished as an RB3, the RB34 overall. And things haven't gotten better for Irving. He's still not healthy. He's still not close to 100%. You had Todd Bowles come out a couple of weeks ago and say that, he'll be ready sometime between summer and fall. So clearly, even if he comes to training camp ready to practice in some capacity, he's not 100%, and the Bucs aren't going to rush him out there. They also had Kenny Gainwell. They still have Sean Tucker, who they like a lot. So I just don't see Bucky Irving returning to being that high-end RB2, low-end RB1. This is going to be a frustrating timeshare committee where Bucky Irving could just be the guy who plays between the 20s and then also doesn't get receiving down work. Because if Gainwell's here to take the third down and 2-minute drill away, and Sean Tucker's here to vulture most of the goal line work, then what is the upside with Bucky Irving? Coming in as the RB20 right now, Irving's being drafted ahead of guys like Quinshon Judkins, David Montgomery, Bashal Tutin, Travion Henderson. I would take all those guys in a heartbeat over Bucky Irving. Even Travion Henderson, a guy who I'm not super big on, I would still rather have him and his upside rather than put myself through whatever headache it's going to be to own Bucky Irving. Kenny Gainwell is the other interesting option here. And Gainwell last year finishes the RB16 with the Steelers, and he did it almost entirely on receiving work. Gainwell last year catches 73 passes from Aaron Rodgers and scores 8 total touchdowns. And I definitely think that Tampa Bay brought Gainwell to town with a specific role for him in mind. I expect him to continue to get a lot of receiving work out of the backfield, being a reliable check-down option for Baker Mayfield. But the one thing with Gainwell's performance from last year, I don't see how he repeats the 8 touchdowns that he scored a year ago. So if you're drafting Gainwell expecting him to be a mid-tier RB2, you're going to be disappointed. I think he's going to be a steady flex play or a bye-week fill-in type, but I still think the upside here is going to be a little more limited than people would like. And then at wide receiver, it was a tale of 2 seasons for Emeka Egbuka in his rookie year. Weeks 1 through 5, we were just on cloud 9 with Egbuka. Egbuka, through those first 5 weeks, averaged over 5 receptions, over 80 yards, and a touchdown in each of those games. And then he hurts the hamstring, and he delivers just one more fantasy performance the rest of the year that was over 20 points. In fact, from week 11 on, Egbuka was just outright unstartable. He only had one performance the rest of the way that went for over 10 points. So what happened here? I definitely think the hamstring injury played into this a lot. I also think the Baker Mayfield laundry list of injuries played into this and affected the connection between himself and Egbuka and just how this whole offense ran in general. And then I also think that offensive coordinator Josh Grizzard didn't do a good job down the stretch. So I'm willing to give Egbuka a mulligan for that second half of the season. I really think he's going to benefit a lot from new offensive coordinator Zach Robinson's scheme. Look at how Robinson has featured Drake London at times over the last 2 years for the Atlanta Falcons, moving him all over the formation, getting him looks out of the slot. That's the kind of stuff that I expect him to do for Egbuka. I love Egbuka's price tag. He's currently going in round 4, and for a guy that has the first round capital attached to him, who we've seen the wide receiver one upside through the first month of last season, who's still in a very good offensive situation with a good quarterback, a good offensive coordinator, a situation that should be able to maximize his skill set. I think Egbuka is a guy that could really take a strong leap in his second year, and I think there's a great chance that he finishes as a wide receiver one and significantly outperforms his draft position. Egbuka is somebody that is a borderline must-have player for me this year. And then you have Chris Godwin right now coming in as the wide receiver 36. Godwin now 2 years removed from that major injury he suffered. And I don't have a lot of interest at this point. Godwin is someone that's more a name brand recognition guy than he is a useful fantasy asset. He's a floor play. There's not a lot of ceiling here. So I'd much rather be going after the guys that are going around him, like Brian Thomas, Parker Washington, Michael Wilson, Jordan Tyson, Josh Downs, Jaden Reed. These are all guys that you can get in the same range as Chris Godwin that will offer you similar floors and much higher ceiling. Then the other two to keep an eye on here are Jalen McMillan and Ted Hurst. McMillan, who didn't play a lot last season, but there were times in his rookie season where he showed a really strong rapport with Baker Mayfield. There might be an opportunity here for him to emerge as more of the team's wide receiver 2 than Chris Godwin is at this stage, especially if Godwin continues to have trouble getting on the field. Then McMillan, now going into year 3, is somebody that I would keep an eye on as a deep sleeper. And Ted Hurst, their third-round pick this year, this is a guy who I don't know how much of an impact he's going to have in year 1, but if he impresses in training camp and the preseason, then there's always the chance that he could slowly work his way into a larger role as the season goes on. And then at tight end, we don't need to target Cate Otton. Otton is just buried in the pecking order in this passing game, and I don't expect that he's even going to be on the streaming radar for us this season. And that's going to do it for this one, guys. So with Tampa Bay, I love getting exposure to their passing game. Baker Mayfield is a phenomenal late-round quarterback option. Emeka Egbuka is practically a must-have wide receiver for me. The running back situation, however, I have no interest in. Bucky Irving is a total fade for me. I'm totally happy to let my league mates go and draft him. But I thank you guys again so much for watching, and we will talk to you next time when we go over the New Orleans Saints.